Hi, welcome back for day 10 of the Wonder Wife workshop. So last class we started off by introducing what Sarah Yocheved Rigler talks about as being the three sins. Sins with the letter C, since they all start with the C. The first one is criticizing, then correcting, and controlling. We've been speaking a lot about criticizing. Tonight I want to really focus in on correcting, and then the next class we'll talk a little bit about controlling. But before we talk about correcting, I just wanted to backstep a minute because I've been hearing a lot of feedback from the women, the amazing, amazing women who are in this group who have been listening to these classes. And a lot of them are super excited about putting these tools into action. So some of the things that we've been speaking about in terms of how to give feedback to our husbands in a way that is productive. And one of those methods being GAS, giving information, asking a question, and stating how you feel. And a lot of the women have been messaging me and have been saying, I'm so grateful for these tools. I've been using it all the time now, right? So that is awesome. I'm so glad that this class has been helpful for you. But one thing I want to just make sure is happening here is that we're being very careful to measure when we use these tools, how much we share, and how often. So a good rule of thumb is every time you want to use one of these tools to share something with your husband that may be perceived as being critical in some way, that it's balanced with three positive things that you do for your husband. Whether it's making him his favorite breakfast or telling him how much you appreciate him or whatever his love language may be. For some people, that's gifts. For some people, that's physical connection. For some people, that's spending time together or words of affirmation, right? So however it is that your husband feels loved, if you're going to use the GAS technique or deliver some sort of sharing to him that may not necessarily be perceived as positive, at least initially, it needs to be coupled with at least three positive actions on your part. So just keep that in mind. Okay, also, we have to ask ourselves whether the information that we're sharing is even necessary in the first place. So we don't want to go like sharing go lucky, right? Where we're just constantly telling him how we feel and how we feel and how we feel, right? Yes, it's important to have open communication. And we've talked about how that really can bond a couple closer when done in the right way. But the ideal is to also be able to get to a point where some of these things just don't even bother us in the first place anymore. And the way to get to that, the true antidote to that, is to recognize that everything in our lives is coming from Hashem, is coming from God. That really everything is orchestrated by Him. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming classes. We'll also speak about gratitude as an antidote and things like that. But to be able to say, I'm constantly working on myself, not only in the way that I communicate to my husband the things that are bothering me and doing it in a pleasant and in a positive way, but to get to the point where these things don't even bother me anymore in the first place, getting to the root of the matter in the first place. So one of the places where this really comes up a lot is with correcting our husbands. We've been speaking a lot about criticizing our husbands, but tonight I want to talk about correcting. In correcting in a sense where your husband is speaking, for example, he's giving over some sort of information, and the wife is constantly like chiming in. No, this is the way to do it. No, that's the way things happen. Where it's really not necessary at all. And unfortunately, many of us get into it just as a habit, just like without even thinking. So hopefully by listening to this class, it's going to bring it to the forefront of our minds and our consciousness so that we can actually make that kind of a change. So for example, you have a husband and wife, let's call them Sean and Melissa. They're sitting at the table, the Shabbos table with their guests, and Sean is telling the guests about their winter break. And he says, on Monday, when we went to Orlando, we went to the Magic Kingdom. And then on Tuesday, we went to Epcot. And Melissa chimes in, no, Sean, you got it all wrong. On Monday, we went to Epcot. And on Tuesday, we were at the Magic Kingdom. Does it really matter? Why? Why does she need to chime in like that? And that's the real question that I want you to think about when you're listening to this. If you are somebody who you notice corrects your husband a lot. And maybe you've never noticed it before, but maybe now you'll start to notice it. Why do you do it? Where is that coming from? And I would love to hear from you, your own personal reflection on where you think maybe it's coming from. I'll give you a few ideas. For some people, it comes from a place of low self-esteem, where they need to always give off the impression that they're in the right because they actually need that confirmation to come from others because they feel lowly about themselves. Some people are very rigid and they just need to set the record straight. They are very principle-based. Whatever was truly is what happened, that's what needs to be stated. And they have a hard time moving out of that rigidity. So just by tuning into ourselves and being able to reflect on why maybe we do this, hopefully that could be a first step to correcting ourselves so that we're not always correcting our husbands. And then the last thing I want to talk about is there is an obligation in the Torah. It does actually say in the book of Vayikra in the Torah that we shouldn't hate our fellow Jew in our heart, and rather we should rebuke our neighbor frankly, right? However, the verse continues, so that we shouldn't share in their guilt. We have to be careful in the way that we do that. So if we're going to embarrass somebody, that's causing us to share in their guilt. That's causing us to be guilty as well. We have to be very careful when we're correcting somebody to do it in a very private, respectful, honorable way. That's number one. Number two, if we know the person is going to ignore us and not listen to us, it's actually, according to the halacha, according to the Jewish law, better not to correct that person. And there's a lot of halachic ramifications that come out of that. So we can save that for another time. But just in general, if the person you know is not going to care about what you're saying and is not going to listen to you, it may be better not to say it at all. Okay? So these are some things for us to keep in mind, just in terms of bringing once again to the forefront of our consciousness. Is it really necessary to correct our husbands on these trivial matters, or can we just let it go? All right, so that's my challenge to you for today, and I look forward to hearing your feedback and your reflections as well.